The Japanese Ministry of Defense just finalized a massive contract worth 128.6 billion yen, which is roughly 850 to 900 million US dollars. This deal, signed in mid-February 2026 with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, locks in the construction of the 3rd to 5th hulls of the upgraded Mogami-Class multi-mission frigates. We're looking at a new sea monster, officially known as the new FFM program. Meanwhile, almost at the exact same time, but on the other side of the world, the UK government just injected £879 million, or about $1.1 billion, into Boeing Defence UK. This 3-year military contract is specifically designed to secure the logistics supply chain, training, and comprehensive maintenance for their fleet of AH-64E Apache attack helicopters and Chinook HC heavy lift transport helicopters. Both of these stories are super interesting, so let's break them down one by one, starting with Japan. This order for 3 new warships is part of the grand plan by the Japanese Navy to acquire 10 to 12 heavy-class vessels by fiscal year 2028. Word on the street was that Tokyo originally planned to build 22 first-generation Mogami-Class frigates. However, geopolitical realities forced Japan to change that original plan. The standard Mogami frigate is actually pretty solid. With its current capacity and quality, it's more than enough to serve as a standard modern warship. But considering the potential adversaries Japan faces, especially trying to counter China's rapidly swelling naval power, they realize that 16 VLS cells simply aren't enough to defend against and hold back the might of Chinese warships. So, to respond to this, the new FFM design had to undergo a massive overhaul. The ship's displacement has been bumped up to 4,880 tons, with the hull lengthened to 142 meters. This 25% increase in hull volume is the answer they needed. This extra space is dedicated to expanding its combat capabilities. The number of Mark 41 VLS cells at the bow has been doubled from 16 to 32. And with these 32 cells, the new FFM now has plenty of room to carry the ammunition it needs to protect itself and strike any threatening targets. Aside from the weaponry, the OPY-2 based multifunction radar sensor suite has also been upgraded, which is expected to make this ship even more formidable. And what's really interesting is that despite increasing the size by 25% and boosting its combat power, Japan's new fleet isn't planning to add more crew members. The crew size is kept at exactly 90 personnel. And honestly, this is a move Japan absolutely had to make. As we all know, Japan's younger population continues to shrink, so the extreme level of automation in the propulsion and navigation systems on the new FFM is a very real solution. It keeps the combat fleet ready without having to rely on a massive number of sailors. There's also a fascinating budget dynamic to analyze from this deal. If we look closely, the 128.6 billion yen contract for these 3 hulls brings the unit price to about 42.9 billion per ship. This number is actually way lower, less than half of the Japanese Defense Ministry's original projection for the 2025 fiscal year, which estimated around 104.9 billion yen per ship. So why such a sharp discrepancy? Well, this is proof of how clever modern military procurement can be. This newly signed contract is most likely just covering the cost of fabricating the steel hull, the main propulsion systems, and the basic architecture of the ship. Meanwhile, the top-tier combat systems that cost a fortune, like the VLS modules, advanced radar systems, interceptor missiles, and the ship's computer brain, are purchased through a separate parallel budget line. Splitting up the financing structure like this allows the Japanese government to spread out their military spending over several fiscal years. This helps them avoid a sudden budget deficit, while making sure their domestic shipyards keep churning out ships without stopping. This block-based production concept adopts what South Korea has done so successfully, where shipyards can evaluate and integrate new designs into the next batch of hulls without having to halt the production line. The long-term strategic impact of having dozens of these new FFM frigates in the future will completely overhaul the distribution of power in the Japanese Navy. Up until now, tasks like maritime patrol, routine escorts, and anti-submarine operations have heavily burdened their large destroyer fleet. But with the arrival of the new FFM, which packs fearsome firepower but comes with much more reasonable operational costs, those exhausting duties can be completely handed over. The ripple effect here is huge. Heavy destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system now can be freed up from secondary patrol duties, allowing them to focus entirely on major high-level threats. On top of that, word is out that this new FFM design has been chosen by the Australian military for their future frigate program. Canberra's decision to acquire up to 11 ships of this type opens the door for Japan's first large-scale export of major weapon systems in its modern history. This proves that Tokyo's maritime technology is now recognized as being on par with, or even surpassing, European designs. However, beneath all this excitement, there is a very real challenge regarding industrial capacity. Japanese shipyards are going to be forced to work at maximum capacity to balance these urgent domestic orders, while also accommodating the export variants. These export models require the integration of completely different weapon systems, like the ESSM missiles ordered by Australia. Now, while Japan is focusing its strength on surface defense, a different strategy is being applied by the UK to secure their tactical air supremacy. London's decision to pour $1.1 billion into Boeing Defence UK is a necessary move to guarantee the combat readiness of two specific types of helicopters. This massive contract, managed under the umbrella of the Rotary Wing Enterprise, is quite interesting. Usually, military helicopter maintenance is handled through fragmented contracts based on the specific fleet type. But the UK realized that this old system was a waste of time, drained the budget, and created a lot of logistical delays. By combining the logistics for the Army's AH-64E Apache helicopters and the Air Force's Chinook HC heavy lift transport helicopters, the UK Ministry of Defence is hoping to create a highly cohesive maintenance ecosystem. So the takeaway from both of these stories out of Europe and Asia is clear. We're looking at Japan's serious preparations at sea and the UK's massive logistics investments in Europe. Japan is laser focused on expanding its combat power, while the UK is focusing hard on securing its combat readiness. So what do you guys think about all this news? Let me know in the comments below.